On today's show, frogs with chemist shops on their heads, prehistoric dinosaur dung and what it can tell us, and ooze investigates volcanoes. That's hot science.
Hi and welcome to today's show.
Thanks for joining us. So this must be a pretty hot experiment because we're in the lab.
Sure is. This is one of my favourite sorts of chemical reactions because we're going to make some colourful chemicals.
Really? With what?
Well, have a look here. I've got some chemicals that have dissolved completely in water. This one here is called sodium hydroxide. This one here, the blue one, is called copper sulphate. This one here is hydrochloric acid, silver nitrate, and this one here is some universal indicator, which indicates if something is an acid or a base. And what we're going to do is mix them all together in this big container here.
Mix all of them?
Yep, and we'll get some beautiful colours.
Won't we just get bluey, yellowy, kind of cleary?
No. Some chemicals can dissolve in water and others can't. And what we're going to do, these all do dissolve in water, we'll mix them together and they'll form new chemicals which don't dissolve in water and they'll come tumbling out of the container, down to the bottom.
Can we do it?
Sure. Would you like to start with the first one?
Yeah, what do I do?
So this is the sodium hydroxide. Pour it in.
All of it?
Yeah, okay. A whole lot. Excellent. Okay, nothing so startling yet. And I'll add the copper sulphate and the first reaction will start to happen.
Oh,
it's a beautiful blue, isn't it? So we've formed a new chemical which isn't dissolving in water and it will start to settle down. Now let's quickly add the next few. This is the hydrochloric acid. So I need to just put the container on the side and it's a bit like, well, what is it like? I need to actually form layers of liquids. Is that sort of forming a clear layer on top?
Yeah,
I'll
it
pour
is.
it a bit faster this time. Okay, so I've got blue gunge and then on top I should have a fairly clear sort of layer.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're going to make another one of these reactions by adding some of this. So I'll just tip it over again. Another clear liquid, I pour it in and you watch what happens.
It's gone white.
Yeah, so there's another chemical which doesn't dissolve in water and that will settle down. And I'll quickly add this last one, which is the universal indicator, and I'll just put some of that on top.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so we've got red, white, white and blue. Oh, that's the wrong way around. Blue, white and red.
That's great.
And aren't those colours beautiful?
They are.
As the different chemicals settle down, you'll actually see them start to fall towards the bottom.
Now, what have we created here?
Well, the chemicals which don't dissolve and start to settle down are called precipitates. So a whole lot of colourful precipitates.
Precipitate.
A great experiment using precipitates, wasn't it?
Hey, you have a close-up look at this, Ooze.
Oh, wow.
Did you see that experiment? Look, there's a blue precipitate that's falling down, and there's the white one as well.
Wow.
So there's two different precipitates.
Yeah.
And a precipitate is something that won't dissolve in water. Well, it might have dissolved once, but then it starts to settle out. And there are different ways of making a precipitate.
There are?
One is to mix different chemicals together, and if two solutions are dissolved completely first of all, and then you mix one with the other, and a new chemical forms, and that doesn't dissolve, then it will precipitate out and settle down, like these two have. Another way of making a precipitate, Ooze, is to have a solution that's completely dissolved and then to leave it out in the sun and evaporate all the water off. And as the solution gets more and more concentrated, eventually it will start to precipitate. So there's two different ways. And we use precipitates a lot in industry, and I've got some examples over here. Let's go and have a quick look. This is some salt, which has come from salt water. Here's the water here. And you might wonder, how on earth do they get salt out of the salt water?
Yeah.
Well, one way to do it is to add chemicals to the salt water, and the salt suddenly isn't dissolving anymore and it settles to the bottom and you can collect it. And another way you might see people collecting the salt is to leave the salt out in the sun, the water evaporates off and you have the salt left at the bottom. And there's another way of using precipitation in industry, and that is to mine a material like we've got on the outside here called copper. Now, copper can dissolve in water, and that was the blue liquid we had in that precipitation reaction.
Right.
So if you're mining copper, you dig the mine shaft and then you flood it with water and the copper dissolves, and then you pump out that water with the copper dissolved in it, and then you add some chemicals and the copper will settle out and you just have to drain off the water and you've got the copper left on the bottom.
Great.
So it's a really neat way of mining copper. But you know, there are chemicals in just about everything around us. In fact, everything. You're made of chemicals.
I am.
You are. The water you swim in is made of chemicals, hydrogen and oxygen.
Right.
I'm made of chemicals. My hair, my fingernails, everything's made of chemicals. Even the food we eat.
Oh, what? Even my mould?
Sure, and it's the chemicals in food that make things taste absolutely delicious.
Oh, yum.
Well, those chemicals may make food taste delicious. They also make food smell delicious, like this. Yum. But there's also chemical in food that are really important to our body. There are three main groups: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats and oils. Let me show you where some of those chemicals are in some foods. First of all, the carbohydrates. Now we can find them in brown rice, flour, sugar, potatoes, honey, and pasta. And that's just to name a few food groups. And carbohydrates are really important to our bodies because they give us energy. And it's that energy that allows us to do the things we want to do. But if we eat too much of these foods, the carbohydrates are converted into fat and we store fat on our body. The next group is fats and oils. And you can see here, there's fats and oils in butter, in lard or animal fat, and also in vegetable oil. And fats and oils are really important to our body because they help with the chemical processes that go on. Now the final group, and probably one of the most important of all, is proteins. Now proteins are important because all our cells in our body are made up of proteins. So proteins allow us to do the things we want to do, like rejuvenate the cells. Also proteins let us grow. And we find proteins in enzymes. Now enzymes break down the food we eat, so these are really important. And we find proteins in red meat like this, in eggs, in cheese, in white meat like fish, in nuts, and finally also in beans.
Hey Rob, I'm ready. Oh, look at this food.
Don't you touch it, you can
Looks
just
great,
smell.
doesn't it? Because food and cooking, there's a lot of chemistry involved, and it certainly would have to be one of my favourite areas of science. There's lots and lots of science in there and in the cooking. And we can change some chemicals and make them taste better. Let's have a look at what I've set up here. I was making some caramel while you were talking about food.
Yum.
And you can see it's in the pot there at the moment.
Now what's in
cooling
caramel?
down.
Sugar?
Well, to make it, that's right, I had some water, put about 2 tablespoons of water in the pot, and then I added about 2 tablespoons of sugar.
Which is carbohydrate.
It's carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and all of that together is called carbohydrate. And we put that in the pot here and cooked it up. And what happens is the carbon changes, or the sugar changes into simple sugars, so it goes from being white into being browner, and also the hydrogen and oxygen in the sugar goes away as water vapour. You see a lot of steam come off here, and what we're left with is the carbon, and it starts to get darker and darker brown, and eventually you're left with really lovely caramel like this.
Oh,
now,
yum.
let me just put that into this container here. Oops, can I get you to hold
Yep,
that?
sure.
There we go, and I'll just tip that up like that. So I've made some really nice caramel, and I've got a sticky bun over there for you to pour some caramel on.
Right, we'll cut it in half.
Oh, okay, so I get half too.
Yeah. Whoops. There we go.
I like this sort of experiment.
We get to eat it. Now, do you want to put the caramel on there?
Sure, how will we do that? Just, I might use this spoon here and dribble some up like this and pour it on. It's a bit runny, this caramel I made, like that. Now watch out because it'll be hot. It's just come off the stove, and shall we give it a...
Yep, come on, you take your half.
Okay, I'll take mine like this, and we'll see how it tastes. Oh, it is hot.
1, 2, 3.
Absolutely scrumptious.
Yum.
Next, the remains from prehistoric dinosaurs.
See, help, help, volcano, help!
There's no volcano, Oops.
But there's all these volcanic rocks here. There must be a volcano.
Well, I brought those in to show you the sorts of rocks that come out of a volcano.
Oh.
Yes. Imagine once upon a time, all of these rocks were molten.
Wow.
Imagine how hot it must be inside a volcano.
Oh, very hot.
If we could have a look inside a volcano,
Yeah?
we'd see lots of molten gas and rock, and when the pressure builds up, it spews out through holes in the Earth's crust.
Wow.
And as that cools down, you're left with lava on top, which can cause all sorts of problems as it dries and cools down.
Yeah.
And as a volcano explodes, it's a bit like the pressure building up in this toothpaste tube. And I push, and the pressure builds up.
Yep.
The pressure could cause the lava to come out through the tube there,
Oh.
or it could come out of a side vent like that.
Oh,
And that's called a vent on a volcano.
vent. Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Now let's have a look at some of these different sorts of rock.
Yeah.
This one here, Ooze,
Yeah?
is called a volcanic bomb.
A bomb? It looks like a big nut.
It does, but imagine that hitting you on the head as it fell to earth.
Ouch.
It's very heavy, and it's got this shape because it was shaped by the air. As it flew through the air, it got a very streamlined shape. As it cools down, it forms rock like this. if we could cut it in half.
Yeah.
See the beautiful crystals we can see inside?
Oh, lovely green colour like me there.
That's called overlean, and once that was molten as well. We don't just get heavy rocks from volcanoes, though. This is a very light rock.
Yeah.
It's called pumice.
Pumice.
And it contained lots of gas. As the rock cooled down, the gas escaped, and this rock is so light it can float.
Ha, a bit like me, hey? Full of gas and floating.
Just like you.
Yeah.
This is some volcanic ash.
Oh,
I've
look
put some
at
in a
that.
bowl here. Let's have a look at that. It's very, very fine.
Oh, wow.
And this can stay up in the air for a very long time.
Ooh.
Eventually, though, it does fall to earth, and the heavy ash falls first
Yeah.
and forms a layer, and then the lighter ash falls on top, and so you get rocks like this.
Like a sandwich, eh?
That's right, they're layers of ash.
Yeah.
But have a look at this. This came from a volcano too.
Yeah.
Doesn't it look like hair?
Yeah, it looks like hair.
It's from fibres that were inside a volcano. They cool down and you get these lovely fibres like hair, but made out of materials like glass.
Wow. Bit like my hair, eh, Sue?
Now, Jamie has built his own volcano. Let's join him now and find out how he did it. Jamie, what did you do?
Well, first of all, I got the plyboard and got some chicken wire, some wood, and some glue.
Okay, and you put that all together to make your own volcano. So you mould it and shape it to the shape you want?
Yep,
Okay,
just like
so
this.
we end up with something like that. Hey, that looks like part of a volcano. I notice you've got a cup in the top too.
Yep, that's to hold the mixture that's going to make the lava flow out of the volcano.
Excellent. So this is only partly finished though. You
Yes.
finish your volcano and eventually you paint it like that one over here.
Yes, this is a finished product.
It looks terrific, just like the real thing.
Yep.
Quite small though, and these must be your reactions that the
Yes,
you're going to
this
use?
is what we're going to use to make the volcano, the lava flow.
What sorts of things have you got?
Well, we've got vinegar, we've got colouring, and we've got bicarbonate of soda. What we do is, to make it erupt, first of all, we pour in some vinegar, and then we put in the red and yellow food colouring.
Now the order's pretty important here, isn't it?
Yes, because if you put in the bicarbonate of soda first, and
Your reaction will just happen, won't it?
yep,
Okay, so you add your food dye to the vinegar.
yep,
Okay, I can imagine it's going to be beautiful colours. Now red and yellow make good colour for lava?
yep, it's
Okay,
a ready colour.
all right. And then when you're ready to go, we'll just shift these out of the way.
Yes, we put in the bicarbonate of soda.
Uh-oh! Whoa, it's fizzing
Makes the lava
away, it's
flow.
erupting, and we've got our lava.
Yep.
Now, what's going on there?
Well, it's a chemical reaction between the vinegar and the bicarbonate of soda. What happens is when they mix, it causes a chain reaction which makes lots of gas, and that gas is forced up out of the cup and makes the lava flow.
Right, and that gas is called carbon dioxide.
Yep.
And it's carbon dioxide in real volcanoes, which comes out as a gas.
Yeah, it's the same as what makes a fire extinguisher go and also what makes cakes rise.
Okay, well there you have it, a simple recipe for making your own volcano.
The acid in a great white shark's stomach is powerful enough to corrode steel.
If I said the word dinosaur to you, which ones would you think of? Maybe a Brachiosaurus, a Tyrannosaurus rex, or even a Triceratops? They're all very big and heavy animals, but that's not the complete dinosaur picture. And we have Mark Hutchinson in with us today. Hi Mark, how are you?
Hi, Robin.
Now Mark, tell us about dinosaurs. Have we changed our ideas much?
Oh, we've found out a lot about dinosaurs probably in the last 20 years. A lot of new stuff's come up. Perhaps we can talk about some of the ways in which we found those things out. And let's start with what we've got at the front here.
Oh yeah? What are these?
Now, these are what paleontologists, that's the people who study fossils, would call coprolites, but we can call them dinosaur poo.
Oh, yuck!
But dinosaur poo is very important stuff. You can find out a lot about dinosaurs from what they ate, and this shows you what they ate.
Pick it up?
Yeah, you can pick
Yeah,
it up.
okay.
'Cause it's turned to stone now. These are 115 million years old. And you can polish the insides and see the sorts of plants or animals that they were eating. But you can also look at more traditional type things. We've found a lot of really nice fossils. This is a skull, for instance. This is a skull of an animal called Dromaeosaurus. And this is a small flesh-eating dinosaur closely related to Velociraptor that some of the people may have heard of. And what you can see on a small dinosaur skull like this is how lightly built they were. Lots of very thin, bony struts. And in fact, there are animals around today that have the same sort of skull structure that we can use to give us an insight into what dinosaurs were like.
Like which ones?
Like which ones? Well, here's one. And if we have a look at this skull, This is the skull of an ostrich. This is a bird's skull.
Really?
They're not the sort of animals you think of as being dinosaur-like, but if you look at, particularly if you turn them upside down, you can see the same arrangement of thin struts, of crisscross little bits of bone, lots of spaces between them, so they're very light, but also very strong. And light, strong, mobile, active sorts of animals is the sort of things that we imagine Dromaeosaurus and a lot of the smaller dinosaurs to have been.
And what's this one over here?
Well, this is the sort of thing also that you can show a bit about the way that dinosaurs were put together. This is most of a thigh bone of a dinosaur, the femur.
Like our thigh bones?
Like our thigh bones, in fact, like this thigh bone. And this one's had the ends broken off, so it doesn't have the knee and hip joint anymore, but if you look at the two side by side with the shaft here, you have bones that are rather similar in size and shape.
Except what's this thing here?
That's right. If you turn them over, our thigh bone's smooth all the way around. The dinosaur thigh bone has this lump out the side, which is an attachment for really big thigh muscles. So these guys were much more muscular than we were, but they weren't much more heavily built than we are. So these are animals that are not all that lumpy and weighty, but they're very active, muscular, athletic sorts of animals.
And we have a very small one over here.
That's right. Some dinosaurs were very small, and about the complete opposite of large and heavy. This is the skeleton of Compsognathus, one of the smallest dinosaurs, and it's almost complete. There's his little squashed skull with its teeth, his neck wrapped around there, his front legs, his back legs, and his tail. And these, again, are small, nimble, very highly active dinosaurs. The sort of animals, in fact, that would have been so active that we think they were probably warm-blooded, like us.
Really? Like, what sort of animal would this most be like?
Well, probably the most similar sort of thing would be a bird, like a chook.
Oh, a bit of an ankle biter.
A bit of an ankle biter. Sort of fast-moving, fast-running, very alert little animals. And if you go to perhaps the final thing that we're looking at here, this little specimen here is the full-size skeleton of a pterodactyl, a flying dinosaur. And these animals must have also been extremely active and had very high rates of energy production. And again, they would have needed some way of keeping warm. And some of these specimens actually show what the skin covering was like, and so we know how they kept warm.
Like how?
These animals had fur.
Really?
That's right. These are not little scaly things. These were furry.
So what animals would this most be like?
Well, the animal that comes to mind is a bat.
Wow, so there were dinosaurs from millions of years ago that had features that we find on animals today?
Absolutely.
Here's a dinosaur designed to keep graffiti artists at bay. It comes specially equipped with security cameras, paintbrush and claws to capture the vandals.
Next, more mysteries revealed from the humble frog.
Wouldn't it be great to stay a kid all your life?
I sure would. You could play and never have to grow up. It'd be great.
Yeah, we'll meet a creature that does stay a kid all its life. This is the axolotl.
Oh, what a weird-looking animal. Look, it's got gills on the outside, poking out into the water. It looks a bit like a fish or a frog. It's got 4 legs, and on the end of each leg is a whole set of pointy toes. Wow. And look, there's a tail right at the back.
Now, this animal can stay in its larva form like it is right now and reproduce like that.
So even though it's a baby itself, it can have more babies?
Yeah.
Wow, what a wonderful animal.
Now, the only reason why it'll grow up is if the water dries up, say in a drought, then it'll change into a salamander.
So if it's going to live out, that means it's going to live on the ground, so it'd need to get stronger legs, and the gills would have to sort of be absorbed and you'd have to get lungs.
That's right. That's exactly what happens to it.
A wonderful animal. Let's see if I can give it some meat to eat. Just dangle some meat in the water there like that. Oh, it hasn't quite worked out where it is. Oh! Well, there's the axolotl.
Welcome to the wonderful world of frogs. Kids have known it for years. Frogs are our friends.
I think all of us love to look after frogs and tadpoles and watch their transformation from little eggs into tadpoles into frogs at some stage in our life. This particular frog is rather special. On the top of its head, it's got these sort of bulges. It's almost as though it's wearing a sort of helmet, a sort of extra hat. And in fact, in there are compounds, chemical compounds, and which can be used as drugs. Because in this area on top of the head, there are chemicals which are so-called antibiotics, that is, things like penicillin, which have the ability to be able to destroy organisms which produce disease in human beings. And over the last 10, 15 years, people like me have been looking at the chemicals that are inside these glands and wondering whether we can use them.
It's hard to believe this frog has a chemist shop on its head, but how do you get the drugs out?
Is we use something rather like acupuncture, and we give the little frog a stimulus here on the surface, and all the goodies come out onto the surface, and we're able to identify what they are. It's been suggested that frogs are declining in many parts of Australia perhaps because Australia is becoming rather polluted. That is, that we've got problems, that there are too many chemicals in the environment. And the frog is a good indicator, because frogs lay their eggs in water, and frogs, as a result, can tell us, in fact, if our world is badly polluted. And that's certainly the case. But creatures like this one, you'll be relieved to hear, in northern Australia, are still doing very well indeed. Many years ago, people in England used to say, if you pick up a frog, you'll get a wart. They really hadn't got it right at all. The reality, the real thing, is that frogs have in their skin chemicals which will destroy warts, and in fact in 2 parts of the world that I can think of, in the northern part of Argentina and also in Nigeria, people take a live frog and they put it on their wart and they strap it on with a bandage and they say the wart goes away. So if you've got a wart and you want to get rid of it, perhaps that's what you ought to do.
It was the ancient Chinese who first used frogs for medicine. They used the skin to make an ointment or cream to treat cuts and sores. These days, scientists believe they can get up to 40 or 50 different chemical compounds from just one frog. Some think that these compounds might help protect frogs from some of the dirty water they live in. And there's one theory which suggests that the natural chemicals in frogs allow them to sit out in the sun without getting skin cancer. That's why Professor Tyler thinks they're such terrific animals.
There are some people who think that frogs are not very beautiful. There are some who think they are magnificent. A creature like this, magnificent in its form, and happy to be living with me here on my hand, this to me demonstrates that frogs really are very, very beautiful.
Who can tell me what a coprolite is?
Oh, it's fossilised poo!
That's right.
Yeah.
Who can give me a food that's rich in carbohydrates?
There's bread.
Yeah, or rice.
Or potatoes?
Yeah.
And if you want an investigation to try, why don't you get a piece of bread and have a look at it right up close and see if you can work out why it looks the way it does?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you try that, but we have to go. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.